I'd like to introduce Patsy. Now, Patsy is a real star as far as I'm concerned, as far as the Primary Science Teacher Fellowship is concerned. Patsy was working at Remuera Intermediate during her fellowship and afterwards. She's now taken some time out from school and is working with Auckland University. Last year, Patsy did a lot of work surveying students and teachers about their attitudes to science and about the nature of science and stuff, and did lots of innovations in her school. And without further ado, I'd like to hand over to you, Patsy, because I'd like to hear you talk about the whole thing of developing science literacy. So over to you, Patsy. Take it away. I'll just clear the page. Someone's been scribbling on it. Okay, so take it away, Patsy.
Okay, hello. Can I just have another thumbs up, just make sure that you can all hear me, please, before I get started? Excellent. This is so novel for me. Again, like yourselves, this is first for me too, so it's quite interesting, very exciting. Good evening, everyone. My name is Patsy Hindson, and tonight I'm going to share with you a process that I went through with my school last year. I was very fortunate to have a principal, Janet Exon, who was extremely supportive and encouraging in my quest for developing scientific literacy. I hope my presentation tonight may encourage you to consider some of what I discussed tonight, and possibly encourage you to try something new in your planning back at your school. Next slide. Oops. I'll try and get used to this. Okay, here we go. There's a picture of myself on the left and Sonia on the right. She is my partner in crime. She also shares a passion of science with me, and last year together we worked on the program developing scientific literacy, and there's nothing like working with someone else. We bounced ideas off each other all year, and it was a real team effort. So just a formal thank you, Sonia. Okay, scientific literacy. Scientific literacy makes good sense to me. It's what education is all about. As teachers, we want students to have knowledge and skills to go out into the world and be informed and active citizens. Here I quote from an American academic, Lederman. He writes prolifically about science literacy. He writes prolifically about the nature of science, and he also writes a lot about teaching science through socio-scientific issues. So if you're interested in reading further about these topics, I would strongly recommend that you Google Scholar him. He is a goodie. I believe Michael will have a copy of this on his website, so you can go back and look at this for further referencing. Oh gosh, I'm having trouble changing. Here we go. These four concepts have been the focus for me as curriculum lead teacher in science. For effective engagement in science, it's essential that each of these concepts are given considerable thought before you start to plan. Science topics need to be relevant to the student's world. They need to be taught through the nature of science strand, and it needs to be accurate and up-to-date science. And you can achieve this with input from your own science community. And so this became our school target. Unpacked, our targets looked a bit like this: a deeper understanding of the nature of science evident in the classrooms, increased teacher confidence, leading of course to increased student confidence, and teacher ownership of planning and lessons. In a nutshell, variety amongst the classes. Here's an interesting quote from Lederman. Not only do teachers need to know what it is they have to teach, but for effective PD programs, they must also include how to facilitate the development of students' understanding of the nature of science. We needed to take a snapshot in term one. It helps to direct the PD to our school's individual needs. We had a lot of questions that needed answering. We surveyed the whole staff and we surveyed the students. So rather than survey all the students, we took 2 students from each class, the 5th boy and the 5th girl on the roll, and these same students were also surveyed in term 4. I will share with you these results towards the end of this presentation. Okay, so what did we do? So in the term, this is what we did. Selected topics that were resource-rich and relevant to the students. So rather than have a contextual topic like material world or living world, we chose a topic that could overlap several different contexts. So for example, in term 2, Year 7 students studied nutrition. And the science behind nutrition is a great topic which can lead to a range of socio-scientific issues. Students in our school were running surveys. It's fantastic for integration with maths, testing heart rates, testing blood pressures, investigating a range of foods for starch and fats, doing vitamin C titrations, comparing sugar and fat contents in foods, you name it. It was a real variety of life. And I know the teachers appreciated the flexibility of this topic too. So choosing topics like that really is encouraging nature of science behaviour. Bringing in science experts to talk to assemblies. Scientists came to classes, they came to lunchtime science groups. So here you can see Jackie Bay from Lens Science from the Auckland University came to talk to our staff in one of our PD sessions. Professor David Cameron Smith from the Auckland University was our keynote speaker at our nutrition symposium. So bringing in scientists has many benefits, but the point I want to make here is that bringing in scientists to your school also reinforces the idea that students can see what they're doing at school is real and up-to-date science. Okay, so this is exactly what happened every term. We provided a specific professional reading for each syndicate to unpack with their professional learning conversations. We provided an activity for each syndicate. Again, this was managed by the team leaders and required the teachers to reflect on their classroom practice when contributing to the particular activity. Towards the end of each term, we provided an afternoon of explicit curriculum content, and this reinforced the science concepts behind the units that were taught the following term, giving teachers just more confidence basically. And the last one, providing an afternoon of experiences where the facilitation of the nature of science lessons were modelled and hopefully reinforced. I felt that maintaining hands-on opportunities within the school was very important. It's essential to give the teachers as much support as possible here, as time and resources are our biggest challenge. I set up trays of almost prescriptive activities where students and teachers could explore specific concepts being studied throughout each term. The trays had equipment at the ready, and each tray had a laminated sheet that posed questions and tasks for the groups of students. Turn the cards over and the students could read for themselves simple scientific explanations of the events that they had just set up. So using these trays was optional, but most teachers used these as starting points for their units. They were great scaffolding for a range of teachers. But having a selection of resources readily available is also very important, so that the teachers and students can also design their own investigations. Resources is the biggest challenge. School-wide assessment. So throughout the year, snapshots were regularly taken in a range of ways throughout the year, rubrics and graphs, etc. I tried to adjust the assessments so they were not just about the recall of facts, and this is also a very challenging task. So let's take a look at the results of the surveys. So first of all, the students. Here are the stats for the surveyed students' attitude towards science. The Year 7s had a very positive shift, as you can see, from Term 1 to Term 4. The Year 8 chart isn't here, but I can tell you that their attitude has been maintained up in that like it section across the board. So the Year 8 started with okay, and then moved up to like it, and just throughout the whole of Year 8 they stayed up there. We tried to pose questions in the survey that would give us an idea about each of the substrands of the nature of science. This particular question was trying to identify with the understanding substrand. Here you can see the year 8s show a very positive shift from term 1 to term 4. They confirm simply that what they are doing at school is actually real science, that they're working like real scientists. I think it's a lovely thing to see. Best lessons. Interestingly, at the beginning of the year, nearly 60% of the Year 7s could not recall science in their primary years. The same survey ran again this year from WIN, and thankfully this percentage has decreased to just over 30. 30% of the students claim they've not learnt science before. I'm sure they have, but possibly not being able to recognise it. But another thing that is an interesting result here for me is that 40% of the students surveyed in Year 7 in Term 4 identified the nutrition as a special lesson that stood out to them. And reading through their answers, they wrote so much detail about their specific investigations that they did, and I really think that this tells us something. I'll try not to harp on too much, but the survey results were just fantastic to see. The feedback was great. We asked how the students wanted to learn about science and how they wanted to communicate their science. The Year 7s wanted lots of DVDs and YouTubes, which is no surprise really, but the Year 8 students were remarkably positive about learning science. They ranked all methods of communication highly across the board, and they particularly liked reading and writing about science. But they also identified that their hands-on experiences were some of the best ways to learn about science. They want this. So if you're thinking about surveying your students, it's excellent feedback and excellent feed forward. So I'm moving on now to teachers, how the teachers surveyed. Okay, this chart shows the teacher confidence and how it's improved from Term 1 to Term 4. In Term 1 it was pretty good, but in Term 4 it was very good. This here shows teacher feedback on their hands-on lessons, and you can see a very positive shift here as well. Here you can see two graphs. The one on the left is from Term 1 and the one on the right is from Term 4. The question posed here is asking the teachers to select their top 3 resources that help them in preparation for their science lessons. As you can see, the hot favourites in Term 1 are reading about science and books, the internet, and then team sharing. But at the end of the year, the 3 favourites show quite an obvious shift towards teacher PD and team sharing. Closely followed behind is the internet and then books. So a very positive shift for Sonia and myself. This slide shows our teachers' response to their developing understanding about the nature of science. I'm really pleased with these responses. Each teacher has answered thoughtfully and honestly. Just look at the range of answers here. There has been a big shift in confidence about writing about the nature of science, confirming a deeper understanding about the nature of science. There were many highlights for me, including our symposium, and this is where our students presented their work alongside scientists. It was a great opportunity to share with our parents and whānau groups. But my personal highlight was the science buzz that was going on around the school. Win and Sonia, you'll be able to understand exactly what I'm talking about here. In the classroom and in the staff room, teachers, just like students, like to learn in different ways. Some read, some talk, while others like to do. But the trick is switching on all of the above. And couldn't have done it without Janet, the principal, with her support. She was a tremendous person in this initiative. So I think we're just rounding up now. Let's see what else is there. I think it was a very successful year. Confidence in teacher ability and also attitude for the students. So now I'm going to throw it out to you. Is there anyone that has any questions?
Don't be shy. do put your hands up and have a go, ask a question. Cheryl, take the microphone and step in there, mate.
Oh, hi Patsy, it's lovely to hear your talk. I was wondering, how did you, when you set up the trays, do you have a special fund to do that, or was that resources you already had in the school?
Okay, so the trays, the unit themselves, they could hold, if you can see on the front side there's 12 and there's 12 on the back side, so they actually hold a total of 24 trays. They were about $280 to buy for that set, which I don't think was a terribly large amount. To set them up, there were things like rulers and bits of string, and you can see there in the picture there's straws and spoons, so you can sort of grab things from all around. It's just finding the right activities basically. So the contents weren't expensive. I think the dearest thing was the trays, and it's important that they can sort of be shared as well around.
Thanks, Cheryl. Would you like to put your hand down? Patsy, I was really impressed with your talk. I thought it was really great. And it isn't really about the content. I just wanted to ask whether we can share around the actual PowerPoints. I'm recording the session, but we have had somebody who asked whether she could have access to the PowerPoint.
Of course, no trouble at all. I'm very happy to share the PowerPoint. I'm not quite sure the best way of doing this. Perhaps I can email it to you, or we need to probably, because it's got lots of photos in it, so we need to put it onto one of those drop boxes. So we can do that after the show. I can talk to you, Michael.
Yeah, we can sort that out. John, you had your hand up next.
Hi Patsy, well done. That was brilliant. Dropbox, I can invite you to the Teacher Fellowship Dropbox and you can put it in there if that suits. The question I was going to ask was about the designing of the investigation, the questions that you ask the students and the teachers. These developed by you and your cohort, or did you find support from somewhere else?
Sonia and I sat down and nutted out some questions. I showed them to Michael Winter when he came to visit, and I think we changed a couple, didn't we, Michael? So it also, from the term 1 to term 4, we probably changed about 2 questions. So just the wording so that it was a bit clearer. I think that now I have learned that when you do any sort of survey, you have to trial it out on a couple of students to see that you're getting the answers, you know, genuine answers. So basically Sonia and myself, and with some input from Michael.
Jen, your turn, mate.
Oh, hi, Patsy. That was marvellous. I really enjoyed it. I'm wondering, you talked about how the kids sustained their interest from Year 7 into Year 8, and because that seems to be a really important thing, maintaining the momentum. What do you think are the key things to maintain the momentum of the work that you started? How do you keep things going and that energy up in both the kids and the staff?
Okay, that's actually quite easy. It's an easy answer. I'll just turn to the page that will help reveal all. I think it's this one. No, it's this one. If you have a look down here, the unit studied in term 3. Yep, term 3 for Year 8 was Material World. And it was all about designing their own investigation, looking at the states of matter, anything that reacts with anything else, and monitoring the change or monitoring the gas. The fact that these kids really owned their investigations, they got to do some really amazing posters and presentations as well. So it was a very busy term, but a very positive science term. So I think that that was the crux of it, that unit there. It was just for one term, but it was very powerful, and it was in term 3.
Thanks, Patsy. Are there any more comments or questions or feedback for Patsy? Yeah, Cheryl again. Would you like to say something, mate?
Yep, I just think it's really impressive that basically the staff are brought on board. So even though Patsy's not there, I'm assuming that science is still alive and well in her school, which is a really great thing for her to have started in there.
Maybe Wynne might like to answer this question. I think that if I turn to this page, where is it? The topics here. Guidelines have been set up. We have at our school, we have science leaders, and these science leaders or experts help actually in more ways than one. They help with guidelines, support, organising resources, and you know, it's a really nice feel within the school. And I think the big thing is that teachers help teachers. And as you can see from the feedback, everyone was supporting everyone else. And team leaders play a very important role here. But the reading that I've been looking at this year, the most important person is the principal. If they're on board, you know, you've got everyone else on board.
Deborah, do you want to say something?
I was just wondering if you explicitly integrated English, like report writing and other curriculum areas into the science, and how easy was that for the teachers to do?
Yeah, hi Deborah. Yes, because there were champions in English and writing as well. We have what we call curriculum lead teachers. I'm sure you do too. We talked about it informally. It was a very informal kind of situation. I'd catch up with the head of reading, and we'd say, right, what are your plans for next term? And we'd just make sure that we were working with each other with our guidelines. The subjects pretty much lent themselves quite easily with integration, and often there would be sort of a formal report or explanation or presentation at the end of the term. So it was quite easily integrated at our intermediate school level.
Thanks, Patsy. Another couple of questions, and then we'll move towards the end of the session. So if anybody's got any burning things that they want to ask Patsy or burning feedback, you're welcome. Go for it. Wynne, far away.
Hi, Patsy. Just wanted to check about the nature of science. I'm looking for some ideas and maybe some suggestions. When you set out the guidelines, is it necessary for you to set out what kind of nature of science strand do you want to focus, or do you think, because when I look at the guidelines, you anyway are covering the nature of science, all the strands under the nature of science. So can you just explain that, or maybe if you want to shed some light on that?
Yeah, sure. Now this is my opinion and my experience, but I believe that all of the substrands of the nature of science should be experienced through the science lessons. Some days outcomes may be more of one of the substrands than the other, but I think you could you could maybe get teachers to personally reflect or self-assess on perhaps one of the substrands. What I could do, let me think about this. In the guidelines, I think just a little reinforcer as to what the nature of science is, because there's plenty of academics that talk about it, and there's plenty of, like if you go onto any of the university websites, they have little activities that, you know, what Lederman was talking about, to actually show the students what the nature of science is. You know, the things hidden in a box, and what's behind the bits of paper and things like that. So if you look up on Google how to teach the nature of science, you'll be inundated. So it may be one or two little things for each term to go into the science pack for the teachers.